Welcome to Pretty Good at Talking podcast. I'm your host, Vince Strawbridge, and today we're sitting down with Hare. She's a remarkable hiker who appears in my book about our family's Pacific Crest Trail journey. When Hare read how I portrayed her character, she gave me her blessing to keep the story as written, rookie mistakes and all. But as you'll hear today, I got quite a few particulars wrong. From arriving in Seattle, barely speaking English, to becoming an accomplished thru hiker, Hare's story is full of surprises. We'll get the real version of her story, talk about solo hiking, trail magic, and how the PCT changed her life. Join us for a conversation that ranges from the Cascades to the Sierra Nevada, and from literature to life-changing trail moments. Stay tuned. My book, Pretty Good at Walking, follows our family of 6 as we tackle the Pacific Crest Trail southbound, meeting incredible people like Hare along the way. You can find it wherever books are sold.
Hey, Hare, it's been a long time.
Hey, Vince. Glad to talk to you.
Yeah, so Hare is an important person to our family in terms of our Pacific Crest Trail hike at the very least, and we've stayed in contact on and off throughout the years since then. But we ran into Hare several times. One of the things that we're doing with this podcast is we are focusing on other people's stories, people that show up in the book. So if someone reading the book, they will undoubtedly know who Hare is. And now we want to open them up to that a little more and really get to know who Hare is. One thing I'll say before we start, and you should consider this as Hare is responding to questions and talking. English is not her first language. It might be about her 17th language. So she is 10 times smarter than me. So I'm glad to be in this conversation with her because I can maybe keep up because she has to speak in English. So anyway, Hare, we are excited to hear your story about your hike on the Pacific Crest Trail, but we don't have to limit it to that. This is really an opportunity to talk to you about you and who you are. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the nice introduction. Even if it was a little bit of lying because it's not my 17th language, but not the first neither. And I'm excited.
How many is it?
Depends what you count, but I think it's like 1 of 4 I'm fluent at, and then Latin, and then some other ones which I speak a little. But I'm very happy to be here and to be able to share my story, and I'm also very happy to be part of your story and the book and being invited here. I think I've talked about you also very often whenever I was asked about the PCT and about my adventures out there. And you and your family also marked my journey in many different ways. So, I'm very glad to be here and to be able to talk to you.
Oh, that's great. All right, so let's go way back to the beginning. How do you end up on the Pacific Crest Trail? What leads you there?
So I love literature. I always was a reader, and I think I'm one of those young women who read wild. It's not very original, but I think when I was 18, it was also a bestseller here in Germany. So I found it in a bookstore. I read it. I was in a very low place back then, so I could really resonate with the character. And I haven't read it since, so it's like over 10 years ago by now. I probably also don't want to reread the book. It's probably, the book which impacted my life the most. And I don't want to, I don't know. I'm happy to keep it like this in memory. But I was in school back then, so I couldn't hike the PCT directly. And did some shorter trails here in Europe for 3 years whenever I was on vacation. And then once I finished school, I think a week later, I was on trail, which was also the reason why I was hiking southbound, because, it was the right period.
Yeah, the same reason we went southbound. That's fun. So how did you, that was it difficult to plan from doing school, and how do people respond when you said, hey, I'm going to fly over to Seattle and start hiking the Pacific Crest Trail?
I would say, it's very difficult to answer because it was difficult to plan. It was also the first time I was traveling internationally outside of Europe by myself, and I think I was not as independent as I am now. So I remember the first challenge was getting to the trailhead, and the first time I was crying was already at the airport in Seattle because I got lost. I couldn't find a bus. So the shuttle.
Oh,
So yeah, the planning wasn't that easy. I was also like since the PCT, I've spent about 2 years on off in English-speaking countries, but back then my English was not as good as it is now. So like even like the visa process and everything was not that easy as it would have been for other people. But yeah, I think I figured it out, and I think there had been a lot of things to think about, and I was probably often thinking about the wrong things because I had so many anxieties, and there had been so many things I was worrying about, like not finding a hitch and having to like sleep next to a road for a week because nobody wants to pick me up, or I don't know, it's like things you couldn't prepare for. Yeah, I think I was one of I was not very prepared, I would say, like by now. But it didn't change when I hiked all the trails later on with more experience, but probably it was good.
it would be so terrifying just to land in Seattle, having traveled just for the first time. How did you get to the trail from the airport?
I had to get this bus, which I couldn't find. And there was a trail angel in Tacoma. I couldn't pronounce it back then. I hope it is Tacoma. Yeah.
Tacoma, I think it is.
Yeah. So I had to take the bus to get there, but I didn't have a SIM card, and I couldn't find a SIM card at the airport, so I had to navigate by asking people. Like also when I arrived in Tacoma, I was like on off crying. So it's not a very heroic story, which I have to tell. I remember once I got there, Trail Angel wasn't at home, but Subi was, Miss McIver.
Oh.
I started with her, and I remember her being so prepared and so experienced. And also, I had a severe knee injury when I started. Like, I was like in the house, and I had like troubles like taking the stairs. So I was like, okay, let's do that. But yeah, like it was very intimidating. But yeah, it worked out. And then like the next day, I think we had some pizza in the evening. There was another guy, I forgot his name. He was from Norway, and he quit the trail already quite early, and like I can't remember his name. But we had been 4 people at the start, and took the shuttle, left our stuff with broken toe, and then started hiking.
Oh yeah. So what day did you get there to Hart's Pass?
I can't remember.
We were there. We were there. I think I want to say July 2nd.
Yeah.
And I think you started behind us and caught us at the lake. And so you, with your knee injury, were walking big miles like out of the gate. Was it just, you're just excited to go?
I was not. I was reading this in the book, but I was not. I was so slow. I was really, really slow.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I had really problems hiking anything over 10 miles a day, especially in Washington. It took a while until I speeded up. So I think it took me 2 or 3 days, actually. To get to the border. But I remember being at Hopkins Lake with your family, and this was even more intimidating for me because
you're probably the only one that was intimidated by us. We were really intimidated by everyone we met.
Yeah, I remember the first night it started snowing as well, like in your book. So I think it probably might have been the same day or day before or after. But I remember like Suvi, she was like, yeah, I love it when it snows. It reminds me of home. I went to camp all the time. I like her a lot, but I was like, okay, like I'm here now.
It's so intimidating. So did you separate from her right away, or did you try to keep up with her?
No, I couldn't keep up with anyone. So I was very lucky because like on the border, like it was really on the monument when I met Smiles. So we've been hiking more or less the same pace, and so I stick with her at the beginning and the end as well. So we actually started together, then we hiked separately for thousands of miles, and then we actually ended up together and finished together.
That's great. We've already started with a mistake in my book. Maybe I can correct it. It's print on demand. So 72 hours from now. No, I remember thinking that because I remember there were several people that we met there at Hopkins Lake that we kept meeting. So it was Smiles, and I think Sassafras was there. You were there.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There's just a bunch of people that we kept running into. So it was really fun to get to do that. When did your knee stop hurting?
It took a couple of weeks, actually. I felt like it got better with time, probably because like I gained more muscles. But yeah, I was very worried and also like trying to not to push too hard. What is the first resupply stop? Stehekin, yeah. I remember being there with like filled with ice because I had so much pain in my knee and I was like constantly thinking about quitting at the beginning. So yeah, it was first with the knee and then
that's what I'd love to tighten in on that a little bit, because there was a moment, like, I mean, I wrote about it in the book, like about, and I wrote about it like it happened once, but it happened every night for the first 3 weeks, where you'd lay in the tent, you'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking, what on earth am I doing here? This is terrible. Like I've bitten off way more than I can chew. I don't think we're going to be able to, like, what am I doing? Like, and so, which was the hardest part of like, you had to do a lot of coaching yourself past a lot of difficulty. If you had a hurt knee, you were in a foreign country, you're by yourself. And in a sense, I guess if you were with Smiles, that would be good company. But there's just got to be a sense of wanting to give up for quite a bit of time.
I think I never really considered giving up. Like, I was always worried that I would have to, because like the knee the knee situation was very bad at the beginning. And I think like even later on when I was like hiking bigger days, I was always worried that it could come back. Which didn't stop me to hike big days, but it was always in the back of my head. I think like the only time I really was ready to quit was at White's Pass because of the mosquitoes. I think this was like really
that was terrible.
So I couldn't tell anyone home because like nobody who hasn't experienced it can actually relate, and I'm super noise sensitive, so it was hell. It was hell. Like I had to stop there
because it buzz, right? Oh,
yeah.
Did you have a head net?
I had, and I actually, when I was at White's Pass, we did a 0, and I've sent myself. I've ordered like a full body net to to Cascade Lock. But once I picked up the Cascade Locks, there was no need anymore to wear it.
Yeah, that's
luckily.
right.
So it was just a waste of money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that you didn't ever have any second doubts other than the nervousness about the knee. That's really amazing. So you must have been enjoying it. This must have been an experience that you were really appreciating. Like,
of course,
were the mountains unique to you? Like, were the Cascades unique to your experience in terms of the way that they looked, in terms of the way that the trail experience was? All of it, was that new?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think like starting southbound is like it probably was a good idea to start southbound just because of the mountains. I love them. So the views were definitely worth it to keep suffering at the beginning and still having fun. So
yeah, that's great. So Washington, by the end of Washington, your knee's not hurting. You're starting to get a little stronger and go bigger mile days. What's a big mile day for Bear Hare? Because for us, a big mile day at that point was about 23 miles.
In Washington,
if we did 23 miles, we were doing a really big day.
Yeah. I think in Washington, I've only done one more than 20-mile day, which was also, I woke up in the middle of the night. By then I was hiking with Beamer, and I decided to hike like the night to White's Pass because I was hoping for less mosquito inaction at night, which didn't work out. So
they were so terrible.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though? The worst part for me was walking past the northbounders, because we started to meet northbounders, and they would say it's been this bad all the way through Oregon. So I kept thinking, what if we have 400 miles of this? This is going to be so terrible. I'm going to want to go home.
Yeah, I think it was so bad at the moment that I couldn't imagine that it would end one day. Like I was so stuck in this. Yeah.
Did you set up your tent during the middle of the day to hide in?
Yeah, sometimes. But like I'm not sure, but I don't think that I did that many. I actually did. Yeah, I did a lot of breaks. I actually did. Well, like I stopped for every peanut. Like I was like stopping for every little snack at the beginning. I think I just can't really remember like being so stupid, but like I would appreciate every Skittle and sit down for it. So, I mean, I had the time.
I think you need a lot more. Yeah, I think you need a lot more rest at the beginning when you do these trails for sure. So had you done training? Had you done some training when you were preparing to come?
I mean, I thought I was prepared. I had like I had done some longer through hikes in Europe, but it's nothing comparable. Like I had hiked 4 weeks across the Alps, but it was like on huts. So I was always sleeping in huts, and there's much more of an infrastructure. So this was pretty new, I would say. I had also hiked the GR20 in France. It's in Corsica, which is also a very tough hike, but it's also still the same. There's a lot more people, a lot more streets, possibilities to resupply. So, and I never got to this point where I really had my hiker legs. So, I wouldn't say that I was very well prepared. And then the year before, I was like training for triathlon competitions. So I would say I had a good endurance because of all this training I had in the injury. So it didn't really help me. And I also didn't do any competition back then because I was injured.
Did you ever miss a resupply or have a poor resupply where you didn't quite do well enough for a section? Or do you remember if that happened to you ever, or did you do pretty well?
So I had read about 0-day resupply before I got to trail, which was, I think I needed to do it to feel more prepared. But like, I wouldn't say it was problematic, but I've just sent away too much food to any place in Washington because I was unable to really calculate, or like, I couldn't really predict the mileages I would make. I wasn't very well prepared, as I already mentioned. And then I think I only sent boxes to Washington. So in Oregon, I didn't send any. And there had been 1 or 2 times where I was low on food. I remember before Sierra City. And when I reached Sierra City, was it there's a place, Sierra City, right? Yeah, everything was closed when I reached the city. And I was picking apples when I got there because I needed to eat something. But and some hikers also left me some chocolate bars on the way because they knew that I was low on food. So but normally it worked out, I would say. And like on other trails, like when I hiked to CDT a couple of years later, I always try to pack more food to not get into this kind of situation. Because there it was way more important. It's always important, but there had been way less people.
Yeah, that's neat. So you arrived in Cascade Locks with Beamer, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And she was only walking through Washington, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I remembered that. We ran into her at Stevens Pass, and you had already gone through Stevens Pass. Now, of course, are you sure? You were behind us? Why were they saying that you were there?
1 second. Are you talking about the Dinsmores?
Yes, you were behind us.
We've been there. No, we've been there together. You can cut this
out.
Interactions
with you. No, I'm not cutting it out. No, I got it wrong. I got it wrong.
I've sent you an email with this as well, with a couple of little corrections. I'm really sorry.
No, that's fine. If it works for the story, it works for the story. If it's if it's incorrect and it hurts the story, I want to fix it for sure. Okay. If you don't mind, then I don't mind either. Like I like your character. I like your character in the story as a character. And I did, obviously, your second time through now, you probably have noticed that I took some liberties with your story to make it more interesting. Really what I was trying to do, I don't know if you caught this, I'm sure you will have because you're a reader. But what I was trying to do was sort of talk about this person that named themselves something that wasn't true about them. They chose a name that was too exaggerated for who they really were. And so I was kind of teasing. I was kind of playing with that a little bit. And then I intertwined that character with you in more ways than would have been the case. So I took some liberties, and I forgot to ask you, is it okay if I did that?
No, that's totally okay. And I can understand this as well, to fill the blanks, and it's hard to remember everything in detail after a couple of years. I think it's normal to fill it with creativity.
What I think I'm learning now in this conversation is we had you as a far more experienced hiker than it turns out that you were, because you were going slower than I thought you were. You came into the Dinsmores behind us, and then you picked up pace because you were going big miles by the time we saw you in Oregon.
Yeah,
you must have just really started to fly in Oregon.
Yeah, I changed hiking partners in Oregon, and I think like every day I've hiked in the first 2 weeks in Oregon was the longest day I've hiked in my life.
Oh,
Yeah, it
wow.
was also when
Was
my
it
knee
fun?
stopped to. Yeah,
Yeah, to just say, oh my goodness, I walked, because you were walking, I think you had walked at least a 40-mile day somewhere in there. Like, there were crazy
yeah,
numbers. I remember running into you.
yeah.
So,
No, but it felt easier than the 10-mile days at the beginning as well. But
yeah.
yeah, it was interesting because I think I still had this on other trails when I was like way more experienced, but I never believed that I can make it in the beginning of a day. And then
Yeah.
it feels easy. Like, even if I have done it already, like 20 or 30 or 50 or like, I don't know how many times, but yeah, then it's not that hard. But yeah, it seems long in the morning.
Yeah. Did you like Oregon?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was my favorite state.
We did run into you in Oregon, and I don't mention it
Yes.
in the book, but now I'm remembering it was at a water stop for
Yeah.
sure. And then we ran into you north of Ashland. So
Yeah.
we saw you at a water stop, and maybe then that day or a day later or something, we ran into you. So.
Yeah. I think it was also around Crater Lake at a parking lot or something that I ran into you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also not mentioned, but yeah, can't mention everything. And I only know it because I've listened to it today.
I had it's great. I had one of Monica's complaints is that she didn't show up in the book as much as she would like to.
Yeah.
She said, I certainly played a larger role in the story than I appear. And I said, well, that's fine, but if I had put you in the book as important as you are, the whole book would have been about you, because her feet hurt so badly, and everything like the conversations about whether or not to keep going, all that stuff. So much of it centered around her that I thought I kind of want to write this book so the kids have something to remember. If I write about you, they'll only think the trip was about you. So I thought I got to do that differently. But it was interesting to try to choose where I included people and how I included people.
Yeah. But I actually also thought about this, like, now that you're saying this about Monica, because I was like, I realized that, like everybody probably realized this, but you wrote a lot about June, and then I think the second most present character is Georgie, but I think like Monica, for example, doesn't appear as often, so I've also recognized this. Yeah.
Well, I kind of wrote about the people that I was with mostly, and I was walking in the back with whoever was in the back, so that was June. It was mostly June, but it was great. What a hike! It was so much fun. But and I utilized some. Maybe I should ask this question now, because obviously when we run into you in Oregon, or when we passed your tent that day that you were sleeping in the middle of the day, and then you passed us at night with a flashlight. Well, without a flashlight, it was so amazing. But I remember that day very clearly, and remember thinking a lot that day about the difference between hiking solo versus hiking with a family. And so I thought, man, this must be just such a different experience to do it that way. But man, through Oregon, you were flying, and I don't know, like, I keep picturing like that mid-afternoon right just before you get your second wind, just before it feels great again, that like after lunch, like when you're just not sure and it starts to get tired. I thought this must be a hard part to get through if you're hiking by yourself. But was it difficult? Was it different? I mean, I can't say was it different because you'd never hiked with your family.
Yeah.
But what was it like? What was it like at that point? Were you beginning to get so confident and comfortable that you're just like, man, this is great. I love it. Because you really do seem to have a really cool appreciation for what you're walking through.
So it's very difficult to say, because like I think in Washington, I always hike a lot by myself because I couldn't keep up with people. I'm a very slow pacer. I still am. So whenever I hike long days, it's just because I wake up before everybody and I hike longer. But I always shared campsites with people until mid-Oregon. And then I had to sleep by myself. And I think at the beginning, it feels very distant right now, but I remember that it was very hard for me because I was like in between people I knew, and I want to like keep up with people, and I had friends behind me, but like hiking by myself and sleeping by myself was very new to me. And I think that was something to get used to. Right now, I feel very comfortable with it. And I love having the freedom of like being able to stop whenever I want to stop, to hike as long as I want, and not having to do as many compromises, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So also like being able to listen to my body and rest when I want to rest, or I don't know. So there's a lot of good things about it, but I think the most fun like on trail is always when I hiking with people and sharing the moments. So
yeah.
And so I don't know.
But I'm now remembering that you have to tell us about another injury or potential injury, because I remember your feet were pretty bad coming through Oregon. Is that right?
Yeah, I was hiking in boots in Washington, and I had a lot of bad gear decisions before I had it on trail. I pretty much replaced all my gear in Cascade logs. I had a ride into Portland, and I had to replace a lot of things because they were not made for the PCT, let's say. And also my feet were growing, and I had some new shoes, but like already hiking out of Cascade logs, I felt they were not the right fit, and I had blisters in blisters in blisters. I had a triple blister, and they were filled with mud when I arrived in Ashland. So it was like, I was there in the hostel opening them up. And I think it was the longest shower I took in my life because, like, it was so interesting to see and so disgusting at the same time.
Because we really did get word of you at the outdoor store when we went. When Monica went there to exchange some socks. They said there was this girl that came in here, and they were telling stories about you.
No, and like since Ashland, I'm happily hiking with ultras. I've never.
There's so much. Yeah, they're great. It's so much better a shoe. I bet you felt better right away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So from Ashland, you went. So we have, I don't know. Just take me. What's going on? What happens after Ashland?
It's a very good question because I was wondering what happened after Ashland.
Good. Okay. Well, I can tell you. Really remember. I can tell you significant events for us, and maybe you can find your way to it, because I don't think we saw you again after that for a very long time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's possible.
I don't think we saw you until the middle of the Sierra. I mean, we were able to track with you because
Tahoe.
We ran into you that day. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a very long time between Ashland and South Lake Tahoe that we didn't get to see you. And so I'm just sort of wondering about that. But significant events for us were probably there was a fire. There was a lot of smoke in Syad when we came through there, and it was hot. It was pretty hot in Northern California. And I kept thinking, man, I'm glad we're not northbounders. That would have been much hotter than us, because we're starting to get toward the cooler part of the season. But yeah, and I remember how weird it felt to me when I crossed the California state line, and I thought, this is like, we're not even halfway and we've already entered California. This is going to feel like a really long state to me. I remember feeling that way. I don't know how that would have felt to you, but those are a couple of events I thought that was interesting. Like Oregon didn't have any water, really. It's a lot of big water carries. And then we came in California, it was a lot more water. And it was really beautiful. I didn't expect it to be so nice because people had all said Oregon's not great, and that was great. And Northern California isn't that great. And it was the Marble Mountains and the Trinity Mountains and all this beautiful stuff. And then I love the Hat Creek Rim, how like that long walk along that rim. So, and the caves, did you go on the caves?
No.
Oh, you passed right by them. You're going too fast.
Honestly, half of the things you're mentioning right now, I cannot remember. At least not their names. So
essentially, you slept logged from all the way from Ashland to Sierra City, somewhere, South Lake Tahoe, somewhere in there.
Yeah. No, I was hiking. Yeah, I was hiking longer days back then. I on off hike the Troubadour. And I don't know.
You were hiking with Troubadour? Because we kept running into Troubadour. And so like, how did we miss you? You must have been right around us the whole time.
Yeah, it's been funny because there was like this one campsite, and I had to think about it because you're mentioning this late northbounder, right? In the book. The German northbounder. Yeah. So there was one night when I was camping with Troubadour, and like we've been cowboy camping. I think like I started cowboy camping in Oregon, and I like never stopped. I didn't pitch my tent again after the Sierras. And so there was this like German hiker, City Girl, I think her name was. And she woke me up and then asking me if I was the German the German hiker as well. So, because apparently
That's
people
great.
had told her that I was coming. And then, she was monologuing for like an hour because she needed people to talk to. I know all her lives, all her affairs, maybe she should cut her trail name out to keep her privacy.
There you go.
But,
Well,
and
I was
later
going to
on,
ask you to finish her story. That's right. I needed.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened to her?
Yeah, she got rescued by a helicopter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she showed up at Hart's Pass. And not Hart's Pass. I think somebody dropped her at Rainy Pass, like the road, and said, if I don't hear from you in whatever number of days, I'm going to call this in to emergency services. So you need to stay in contact with me. And when she didn't, that lady called emergency services, and she was found like wandering off trail in the snow.
Yeah. She already had written like letters to her family apologizing for being so stupid. I've seen an interview with her later on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I need the link to that. I'm putting the link to that down in the show notes so people can watch it, read it. That was a crazy story.
She didn't even seem to like hiking. She was like, right now I'm just hiking to lose weight.
Well, she said, this exact same thing. She basically, like when she ran into us, we thought it'd be one of these short interchanges that you have with the northbound hiker. It's just kind of, the same conversation every time. But she just talked and talked and talked. And she said, please, 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 if you see any northbounders behind me, tell them I'm ahead because I am so lonely. So she was really late season. And one of the ways that I used that in the book, and I didn't want to highlight it too much, was that we had been passing all these northbound hikers who were telling us, you'll never make it, you'll never make it, you'll never make it. But as soon as she left, I looked at Monica and I said, she is never going to make it.
Yeah, but I was impressed how far she made it, honestly.
Yeah, so good. Oh my goodness. What an amazing story. I had several people from back home that would send me links to that article about her story. That was something. I'm glad you weren't the German that got lost in the snow.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Well, you almost did.
Yeah.
So we gave you a ride back to trail. I guess we were around, you must have been somewhere in and around, I guess,
in South Lake Tahoe?
Down in South Lake Tahoe, because we were just about caught up to the royal family, Columbus and Blue Bear and Salty and all those people at that point.
I actually don't think that you gave me a ride back to trail. I'm sorry to correct you. Because I've been actually...
trail.
So I've been on trail. I actually stopped in South Lake Tahoe probably a week before you. I went back on trail.
Whoa.
I had an injury. I pinched a nerve in my neck, and then I got off trail after 2 days or something because I couldn't turn my head and I couldn't lift my arm. There had been a couple of problems with my body, and I had to slow down. And then I actually stayed in South Lake Tahoe for a week or so. I was staying with Trail Angels, and
you were way ahead of us at that point. You were there before you were there before probably before the royal family then, and so they showed up a little bit after you then because they were still there when we got there.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. All we're learning, you realize all we're learning is that every time I mention you in the book, I'm wrong so far. So when are we going to get to the right part?
This is why I sent you back. Like, can I say one thing?
Please do.
Like, it's
you
the
can
most
say all the things.
So the most significant thing you're writing about me, which is not true, is that I'm an academic expert in Russian literature, which I'm completely not.
That's just what pick something. You had studied Russian literature, or you loved it, or something. I
love it. Yeah, I was very passionate about it. Like in my teenage years, I read a lot of Russian classics. Yeah, it's something I'm interested in, but I didn't even attend university back then. So I was working in a bookstore, and
one of two things is going to happen from here. One of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to completely rewrite the book, and people who read the book later are going to say, no, he wrote it this way in the book, or no one will ever listen to this. But if they listen to it, they'll be like, I know all the things that he got wrong. I don't know. I don't know what to do from here. I think, do I have any of the essence of Bear Hare, or are we getting to know you for the first time here?
No, I would say like all the parts I could read before, I could recognize myself in the character. It was just like pretty much everything which was written in Washington, I couldn't really see myself.
That's so funny.
Oh, apparently I was fast. Oh.
If I were to create a caricature of you, it would be like big walking, haphazard, comfortable with the whole environment, but also like losing everything, everything's breaking. Like that would be the image that I would have created. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you came back to South Lake Tahoe, and then when we left town to restart, you went up trail back to where you were.
Yeah, so I stayed a couple of nights with the trail angels who hosted me before. I'm still in contact with them sometimes. And
cool.
Then I met another lady in a thrift store, and she also invited me to stay with her. And then I think I also spent 1 or 2 nights with Smiles and her trail family. But they decided to stay in South Lake Tahoe for a little bit more because for a bit longer because of the weather conditions and to buy warmer gear. And I had hiked already just a little bit of a section of the Sierra. So I wanted to get back to that point as well. But I remember having pizza with you in South Lake Tahoe. I don't know if you remember that.
Which I don't include in the book.
Yes.
I know we had a significant interaction.
Yeah. But yeah, then I found this lady in a Facebook group, I think, and she gave me like a ride back to the place where I left the trail, and then I continued hiking.
And how did you get a hitch out of the middle of the Sierra coming back to South Lake Tahoe? That must have been a difficult hitch.
I can't remember.
I blocked that out. That's a tough hitch.
I can't even remember the name of the road or anything.
Okay. So you went through the Sierra. So you restarted the Sierra, and it was getting cold, and and the first part of the Sierra was great. It was beautiful. Everything was sunny. Those walks through like Tuolumne and coming up out of there was all beautiful. But then you must have come into Red's Meadows with some sense of that storm that was coming because everyone was talking about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also knew that like the other people like behind me, like the trail family when I also finished the trail later on, they were all concerned about it and like wanted to wait a little bit to hike in between the storms. And I didn't really care because I wasn't checking the weather.
So hold on. So you were like, I'm going out there alone into the storms. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Home in Germany. I'm picturing people back home in Germany saying, yeah, there is, she's out there just enjoying a walk in the woods, no idea, and you're making all these decisions to walk right into a winter storm. Was it unbelievable? Maybe not your best decision in all of your hiking years.
No. I mean, there had been worse, but there had been better.
That's great. So, and before you left Red's Meadows, did you know that you had? Because I think I got this right. Please don't tell me I got this wrong. Your ground pad was leaking.
That's possible, but there was also another moment where it was leaking as well in the after Kennedy Meadows. But it's possible that it was also leaking in the Sierras, but I had a lot of trouble in general. Like my zip for my puffy was broken and I was altitude sick and I couldn't really eat a lot. But this was great because I met a mouse donkey and worm in the Sierra and they were low on food. And they were like a bit stuck. So I gave them I had a lot of food, which I couldn't eat because my stomach was in trouble. So I gave them food and I shared their fire with me. And like 3 years later, they trail angeled me on the CDT. Like I gave them 1 kilo of like, I would have, how it's called, mashed potato stuff because I had so much mashed potato. I was so happy about it. So yeah. So this was probably the most interaction I had in the Sierra. On trail because there weren't a lot of people out there. I think it was also like the only part of the trail where I sometimes didn't see a person the entire day. So yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful though, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
I remember feeling like I remember some of those gorges, you would stand above them and you're walking down in and you're like, this is like this. You're in here. Like it felt more like we were isolated and sort of trapped inside the mountains than I had before that.
Yeah, completely.
So, but it was pretty. Did you get to spend any time at Ray Lakes? We had to blitz right through.
Actually, I have no idea what Ray Lakes is. I was also running.
Well, we ran into you because you went out Bishop. When did you? How many into Bishop? And you were there when we got there.
Yeah.
And we were really glad. We were really glad to run into you. And I got a lot of trouble with Monica for the way that I described it the first time. She said that is not the way it happened.
No, but I mean, it's probably been very similar, but I was happy to be with you. And I think,
we were.
Yeah, I think that was probably, I mean, you were just saying that you feel very isolated in this year, and especially as late in the season. And I mean, I was hiking most of it by myself, and I knew there had been people behind me and ahead of me, but there was nobody really around. Also, I was hiking an incredibly slow, and then I was happy to not be a burden for anyone there. But yeah, and then I was just like so happy to be with people, and especially with people I like. But yeah. I didn't know that there were other people in town, so I was just so relieved to see familiar faces.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was probably the hardest section mentally for me. Yeah.
Well, you just missed Miss McIver because she was doing the same thing to us as she did to you back in Washington when she was excited about the snow. We passed her. We were coming down out of the mountains, out of Kearsarge, and we're so excited to be out of the storm. And there was supposed to be some other part of the storm coming. And we were like, you know, it's going to be snowing. And she was like, yes, I know. I love the snow. And I was like,
yeah.
We thought we just had a near-death experience, and she was headed right back out into it. So it's very funny. But, yeah. So, and I think I tell the story like you were waking yourself up every 15 minutes in the middle of the night to eat an Oreo to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I really tried to like eat also during the night and stuff and to keep warm.
Yeah.
And
it was so cold.
And I also hiked a lot at night. Yeah.
Oh, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I didn't really have an option but
did you have a flashlight by then?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think I was hiking so much at night because I was so slow that I used like 3 small batteries a night. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. You must have been very relieved to make it to Kennedy Meadows South.
Yeah, I was. And I also didn't summit with me. Surprise.
I don't know if I had nobody watching me, if I had none of my family around, I don't know that I would have brought myself to do it either. I would have been like, I'm getting out of the Sierra as quickly as I can. It's very possible I would have done that. So,
yeah.
But that's great. So when did you run? Because you hiked with Smiles, because I told So Good that I included her in that trail magic that you left for us down in Southern California. And she obviously wasn't there. It was you and Smiles, I think, that did it. So when did you hook up with Smiles again?
So, I mean, I saw her in South Lake Tahoe, and then we stayed in touch all the time. I probably double zeroed in the first town stops in Southern California because I wanted to be with people. But I also wanted to hike, so I just kept it more relaxed. And I think she and her trail family catched up at Hikers Heaven. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a neat place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, did you like Southern California?
Yeah. It was really nice to be with people again. That's what I remember. Yeah, it was definitely different to be in such a big trail family then. Because before I've always hiked with one person or...
It was big? You're saying big. It was more, I just had it as you and Smiles in my mind, but
no.
There's a lot of people, huh?
Yeah, there have been a lot of people, and I'm ashamed to not be able to name all of them.
I won't ask you.
Thank you. I mean, most of them, yes, but
I forget my own family's name. I forget my family's name from time to time.
No, we've been it was always changing a little bit, but it was like 10 people on off. So,
wow, that's a big fan. That's big.
Yeah. I mean, they knew each other since like miles, obviously, but I was the latest one joining them, but yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So Smiles had been walking with them. Is that right? Okay. That would have been nice going through the Sierra with a big group like that.
Yeah, they also shared the tents and stuff.
Oh.
It was an opposite experience to mine.
Yeah, quite a bit different. Oh, man. So I'm going to ask you here, you're in Germany. You can't be extradited for this. Did you walk through the Yellow Frog closure or did you walk around it?
What is it?
Uh-huh. Southern California. It's just before Wrightwood. There was a section of trail that had been closed for an endangered frog. And we missed the junction to go out to the road and road walk around it. You better walk the road.
I actually do not know. I was hiking it with Smiles. It's around Baden-Powell, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. We actually hiked Baden-Powell again 3 years later. So
you and Smiles?
Yeah.
Did you really? Oh, that's so cool. That's really fun. Did she live out in California, or did she just meet you out there?
Yeah, she moved to LA after the PCT. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, what a neat experience.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I don't know about the yellow frog thing.
Well, that's all right. I think a lot of people did. We did it by accident. We didn't intend to do it, and we just ended up in there, and we're like, we're not going back. And I didn't want to walk it was at night. I didn't want to walk the highway with my kids out there.
Yeah.
But I wondered about that. But it was interesting. I loved thinking about water in the Southern California and just how those towns exist, and that LA gets all that water from out in the desert and groundwater from out there. It was fascinating to be in that different. I hadn't spent any time in a desert before that.
Yeah.
Had you?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's been
just
the first
weird.
time.
Like you walk that pipe for miles across there, and you just realize, well, the infrastructure that's in place to get water is amazing.
Yeah, I was hiking 50-mile day during the night with most of it was green, and we didn't even need flashlights because it was full moon, and you could just
so cool.
Yeah, but it was creepy because there had been cars as well. So in the middle of the night,
and trailers and burned out trailers and.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. So it must have been quite a relief to get to I don't want to put any words in your mouth. What was it like to come to the border after all of that adventure for you?
I think it was very exciting. I was not ready to finish, I guess, because I didn't have plans. And this was probably the biggest mistake I had. But Smiles and I...
I just want to say, I want to go on record as saying that when you say this was the biggest mistake I had, that's a pretty significant statement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there have been many, but I mean...
Get to the border with no plan at all.
I mean, kind of.
Okay, all right. Take me through that.
Like the others in the trail family, they did a 60-mile day in the desert somewhere, and Smiles and I didn't because I was worried to get injured, and Smiles didn't want to camp by herself, and so we decided to do a 60-mile day. K day, no, not mile day.
Right.
Oh no. No, 60-mile, 100K day. Yeah, that's it. To Campo. So we zeroed in Campo. There was a trail angel who picked us up, drove us to a town, which I don't remember.
All right.
And then we've been just sleeping the entire day, and we got a ride back to Campo the next day, and we only had the 2-3 miles, I don't know how many it is, to the border, which we hiked together with the trail family. And I remember there was the partner from So Good who was already waiting for us, and he took some pictures, and it was a little party. And then there were Frodo and Scout who picked us up and who hosted us for a night as well. And then it all comes back right now. And I have no idea how we got there, but we got there. We spent Smiles and I went to some family members. We visited her uncle and cousins in San Francisco, and we spent Thanksgiving together. So it was my very first Thanksgiving, and it was great.
That's good.
So I have to get it all together. So it was very emotional, and it was good to be able to eat so much, and and to be clean, and they shared their clothes with us. So So we spent 1 or 2 days there, and then I took a flight to Australia, and I didn't know what to do. I had some friends there from another trail I hiked before in Europe, and I think there was a week or two when I was trying to find a job, but then I decided to go back on trail because I didn't know what to do with my life, and then I hiked another 2,000 K in Australia because I really didn't know. I also like buddied up with like some people there who have been hiking the PCT. There was one northbounder, Jono, who had just like set speed record on the Bibbleman Track, which was the trail I was hiking. So it was like nice to stay in touch with people who just came from a similar experience, because I think this was my major problem, that like, I wanted to share this with people, but I didn't have a family with whom I've hiked the trail. So, I wasn't ready to leave the trail experience behind, I think. And, and then like everything was just very random, because I like met a lady, he offered me a job, and I was managing a caravan park for a winter season in Western Australia. This was really not on my bucket list, but that's how I finished this trip.
That's great. Actually, I think it's probably good to have, what do they call it? Like a warm down hike, something to just like get it out of your system a little bit, because it really does make it like you finish and your head's kind of just in a cloud, because it's such a significant thing that you've just done. And especially if you don't have people at home that you can go and share this with, who'll be excited about hearing it. And, like you just want to talk about it. You just want to like something significant that happens.
Yeah, I think like this was probably like the biggest mistake, not having a job or a family or a partner to go back to, and not really having a plan for what comes next. And I told those stories some friends and some family members, but they couldn't really relate. And I think, it's just like something. I felt very lonely after the trail, and it was very important to like stay in touch with people like I hiked with, and
it's my impression that since that time, since the Pacific Crest Trail, that you've done a really good job of balancing both life and trails, because you've incorporated some more trails, and you've continued to pursue your literature education, which I contest that you were already an expert when we met you on the trail, but you've continued to pursue a lot of your academic pursuits and incorporate trails along the way since then. Is my impression pretty accurate?
Yeah. I mean, this was pretty much it. Like, I was like lucky enough to be able to combine both, like in the last 5 years. I finished my master's degree last month, so like it was all about hiking and studying. And
wait, your master's? Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying that your master's had something to do with hiking. I was like, no, I thought that's amazing if you incorporated that. But your master's itself was in literature.
Yeah. But I was actually writing about a book, like a travel literature book in my thesis.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I was like studying French and Italian literature, not Russian.
Writing the book.
No, it's all good.
Oh, that's great. So you did the CDT, and you say that you're a slow hiker, but you did the CDT in under 100 days.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that going slow.
I mean, I was slow. Like I didn't sleep.
Did you go? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question, because after we finished the PCT, like we pushed pretty hard for us. We went about as hard as we could go, and we slowed down through the desert. We did a pretty rapid pace for a family, and then we were approaching the CDT, and I would say to myself, "This time I'm going to do it different. I'm going to take long breaks at lakes. I'm going to stay at really cool places. We're going to spend 0 days on trail and fish and camp and have fun." And then we get there and we just want to go. We just want to go. Like, so my intent was to make it this slow and careful experience. And I never was able to do that. When you did the CDT, were you just like, I'm going to knock this thing out? Or did you have intent? Were there things that you meant to do differently than you did on the PCT? Or were you just going to hike it?
I think I did the same mistakes. I was completely unprepared because I decided very spontaneously to hike the CDT. I think like just 3 weeks prior or something. And I was counting on my experience, but at the same time, I was such an imposter hiker. So it was like, oh yeah, the PCT worked out, but like a CDT is much harder. And like, so I didn't really have much expectations. I knew that I had to go fast to do it in my summer break, but I was not really counting on that. I was expecting it to take more time. So I didn't go like start a trail saying I want to do it in less than 100 days. It just like ended up because of the people I was hiking with. and there hadn't been a lot of people on trail because there had been travel bans and stuff. So
we on the CDT, we did the same thing. We thought we were experts and we wouldn't have any trouble. So we would stop at lunch or we would stop for camp or whatever, and we would dig in the bag and I'd say, who has the, and we forgot so many things. It was unbelievable, like what we didn't have. It was really embarrassing.
Yeah. There's like the Bob Marshall Wilderness or something, right? And
the Bob Marshall.
I lost my power bank on the second day. And
you know what? Your Instagram post was maybe my favorite I've ever seen, was from the Bob Marshall Wilderness, where you said, I was bluff charged by a bear here, and you had some circle, and then you drew a long line, and you said, and I stopped crying here, or cried till I got here, or something like that.
That's possible. I can't remember this post, but I remember it now.
So you can't remember a bluff charge from a bear?
No, I remember the bluff charge. I just can't remember the post, but
it was so good. It was really fun.
Yeah, also, like, I can't remember the name of the town, but there was another place in Montana where there was a bear standing in front of me. So I was just, like, really scared all the time. Like, I was so, like, I think this was, like, I would not hike the CDT again. Honestly, I was just, like, really anxious all the time. And I didn't stop yelling, hey, bear, every 30 seconds until, like, Colorado. It was so annoying to... Yeah, I was always hiking by myself, like camping with other people, catching them up in the like late at night. And like probably, hiking by yourself, like it's probably more likely to run into wild animals. And I don't know. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who don't mind encountering a grizzly, but I do. So I was constantly anxious. And there had been like also like having to hang your food. Like on the PCT, I got comfortable enough towards the end to like sleep with my food. I didn't mind that much. But on the CDT, like I was not even able to throw a rope high enough to hang my food. So it just took me, like we've been hiking long days on regular basis. And then like having to hike another mile or so to hang your food, and I've spent so much time trying to hang it. And then one night I was hanging my backpack with my food and I forgot my sleeping bag in it. It was just so frustrating all the time. So yeah,
especially with the mosquitoes. If you were ever trying to hang your food in the mosquitoes, that was just so miserable out there.
I didn't mind the mosquitoes on the CDT though.
You didn't?
Okay. I had other problems.
Other things to worry about. I think the CDT was our favorite trail, all of us.
Really?
So, yeah. So that's really interesting. I saw some pictures sometime. I don't know if it was our second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we, to people who haven't hiked the AT and are considering it, I try to say that it's a good trail and that we messed it up. Like we were the problem because we had bad attitudes. But a lot of people don't really like the AT, but I don't know. Like what drew you back to the CDT? There's a lot of trails in the world where you just like, I mean, it was a 3-week notice. Did somebody say, hey, I'm hiking it? Or did you just like wake up in the middle of the night and say, that's it, I'm going?
No, I wanted to hike it. I think it was like since the PCT, I always wanted to hike again. I wanted to hike another longer trail in the US, and it was during the pandemic, so there were travel bans, and I mean, I got vaccinated, but it was still not possible to travel internationally from Germany in the US. And then I figured out that there was the possibility to leave the Schengen area for 2 weeks in order to be able to travel to the US.
Oh.
They didn't give new visas,
cool.
but I had a B1, B2 visa, which is valid for 10 years. And I've read in some Facebook groups about some hikers who did a stop in Mexico, for example, for 2 weeks and then were able to enter the US. And I traveled to Georgia, like not the state, but the country. And I did some hikes there, which was great because the country is beautiful and there were really pretty trails and I met a lot of nice people there. So it was also good to get my trail legs, and it was a country which was already on my bucket list. So, and then I had to find like flight combination which wouldn't stop over in any travel ban country, and I sometimes made it happen. And so it was like very spontaneous when I figured it out and it would work, but it was no longer already on my travel list or like on my it was planned, but probably also because it was like the next challenge, I think. And I was like, but I was still intimidated. I was like considering hiking the AT instead. I wasn't sure if I felt ready, and then I just did it. Yeah.
Wow, that's really neat. So you finished a master's. Are you working on more schooling now?
Not for now, though. I'm probably not. Maybe a PhD one day, but not for the moment. No.
Okay. Are you making new trail plans?
Yes and no. Like, it's really difficult because, like, I mean, like, sometimes I feel like I would like to go on a trail, but I'm also in a relationship right now since about 2 years, and I feel more settled, and my life is it's more here in Germany now. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to hike something as long as the PCT or the CDT and not being in reach and not being able to call or anything. I'm not sure if I would enjoy it at the moment, but maybe some shorter trails for a couple of weeks. I mean, I would be happy to meet up with you in the Pyrenees this summer.
That would be fun.
I mean, I already texted you, so I think in Europe, yes, and there is always the possibility that I just decide 3 weeks prior that I will end up on trail.
I wonder, this is instructive for me because I somehow wonder if one of the qualifications that my kids will put on a relationship possibility list will be capable of doing a through hike. Like, if they're interviewing potential partners, if that's what they'll say.
No, but I was always dreaming of something you have. I saw myself hiking with my future family, and now I have a partner with a physical disability, and you couldn't but it's not a problem at all. So, I mean, we share many other things.
I feel like we can accommodate the physical disability somehow. We'll have to invent something, and you'll have no problem. You're strong enough. You can just help them.
I'm not sure. Like, I think we're good like that, and we share a lot of other things, so it's not a problem.
Oh, for sure. Like Russian literature.
Not even. No, I always thought like somebody was. He's not that much of a reader. Like, he's definitely not the partner I imagined, but the one I want. So,
isn't that funny how that works that way?
Yeah.
Well, and let me tell you, this is the thing that's fun too. I'll tell you this. Monica and I like to call it the bait and switch. And so she thought she was marrying Mr. Poetry, poetry man. And it turns out I wasn't much like that. I like to go fishing more than anything. And I thought she was extremely laid back. And it turned out she was really particular about things and very uptight about things. And I had no idea. So when we first got married, we used to always look at each other after the first couple of years, and we'd be like, the bait and switch. You are who I thought you were. But of course, then you find out it's actually what's perfect for you later on.
Yeah.
So,
that's
laid plans, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Bear Hare, this is so much fun. I don't know. I think it's actually more fun for the fact that I got almost everything about the story wrong.
Almost. There are a couple of details which are correct.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness.
But the funniest part is that I offered the book to my family. Like, I offered it to my parents, and I haven't talked with them about it. I'm not even sure if they read English books, but like, if ever they read it, they won't recognize the academic expert in Russian literature, that's for sure.
What we need to do, here's the thing we could do. This is what we'll do. We'll arrange for a copy to be generated because, it's 72 hours later. You can generate a new copy of the book. I'll make you the heroine of the book. We'll rewrite the whole thing, and then we'll have a couple of prints of that book, and those will go to your family, and then we'll put it back to the way we.
Sounds like a plan.
So you rewrite it however you want. One of the things that obviously, that you ran into in the book was, and I'm interested in this, especially for your scenario where you went all the way to the U.S. You did a hiking trail that was, a little bit unfamiliar to your people. And, I named it Pretty Good at Walking because of that comment from Airborne where he says, I've just given up trying to explain to people what that trail meant to me. How was that for you trying to talk about this with people back home? And what were there things that you learned that you think now, boy, I really did learn something profound there, and it's hard to talk about with people? That's a heavy question.
Yeah. I think I don't really have the words to explain it because I'm so passionate about it. I couldn't even explain why. And I think there are also a lot of things I romanticize afterwards as well about my trail experience. And it's funny because there's one part in your book where you were like saying that like after the trail, you remember all these dramatic moments, and that's the stories you will tell. And I mean, of course, those are the moments which are more present right now than the names of the towns or the rivers or the the lakes. But yeah, I didn't really feel that I could talk about it a lot. I have one friend from my hometown who also, he actually hiked the Continental Triple Crown 2 years ago. Yeah. So like I talked a lot with him about it and with other friends from trail, of course. But like I don't really have outdoorsy friends here, and outdoorsy in a sense that they could relate. So I'm always happy when people talk to me and they're like, oh yeah, I have this friend, he plans to hike the PCT, could you give him some advice? And I'm always happy to interact and to just tell them the stories and to give them advice, probably better than I had. Yeah, I didn't, I mean, I also don't, it's not very present in my daily life, honestly. It was very difficult for me because it feels so distant from my life right here. Not like only the physical distance, but also like the emotional, like it's a different personality, it's a different name, it's a different life. I'm way more laid back. I would also say that I have a different personality when I speak English, so it's just like feels like very far away. Yeah.
You said and you don't have to answer if this is too personal, but you said that you were in a low place when you read the book. Were you in a different place when you came to hike the trail, and did it impact that for you? Like, did you show up to the trail in a low place, and did it do anything for you beneficial?
I was not in a low place when I started the trail. I was on a low place when I was reading the book. And back then, I actually talked with it about it with Monica, and because you can cut it out if you want, if she's not okay with this. But I think,
that's fine. Yeah.
No, because I mean, I had some eating disorders and I was like in a hospital back then. And that's when I read the book. So like I could definitely resonate more with it because it was a young female person trying to hike it without any experience and being mentally not very stable at this point, I would say. I mean, it was definitely already a different situation when I was on trail and when I was like 22 and hiking it. But I mean, it definitely also was good for that because, I mean, hiking a long trail just like makes you appreciate your body more. And I think there are lots of people out there, especially people with a similar story, who can learn these lessons, I think. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that Monica said that I thought was very interesting, especially from her background, that it sounds like you have some familiarity with, was that her appreciation of food as fuel shifted because of the demand of the trail, and you interact with food differently. Like, wait a minute, actually, this is a really good thing, and it really does power this body, which you begin to appreciate your body more and see this sort of you connect it up differently. And so, but Monica's one of the best people I know for just talking to people about what's real. She's very good. Yeah. That's Nate. Well, cool. That's very helpful. This is really fun. This has been very fun. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. This has
thank
been
you
so
for
much
inviting
fun.
me.
So I do hope we get to run into you in France this summer. That would be really incredible.
Yeah.
So we'll have to make good plans. You said you're not available till August?
It's hard to plan because I'm jet hunting at the moment. So
I got you.
It's very difficult to make precise plans, but I mean, I will definitely make it happen to meet up with you. I'm also in France for a wedding in September, but I'm not sure if you're still around like in September, but yeah.
We should be. That'd be great. Yeah. Oh, that'd be so much fun. And what we'll try to do is notify you 3 weeks ahead because we know your whole life can change within 3 weeks. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for this conversation with Bear Hare. It's been fascinating to rediscover how our trails intersected, even if not exactly as I wrote it in the book. From her courageous decision to hike the PCT and her later spontaneous adventures on the CDT, Bear Hare's story reminds us that the trail has a way of transforming lives in unexpected ways. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with fellow hiking enthusiasts, and families for that matter, And if you want to read more about our family's PCT adventure and the amazing people that we met along the way, including my creatively enhanced version of Hare, check out Pretty Good at Walking. You'll find it's a story about family, perseverance, and the incredible community that makes up the Pacific Crest Trail. Until next time, happy trails.